How's your weekend?
Well, I was able to rest naman after watching the NBA. Siyempre, malungkot yung asawa ko dahil Spurs siya. Eh, ako naman bilang bandwagoner, go Knicks. At least aminado ako.
But you were able to get your sleep.
Yeah,
which
oo
is
naman, which is
excellent.
better. Yeah, oo.
How was your weekend?
Mine was very chill. Jani Alipoon, entertainment reporter of TV5, celebrated her birthday.
Oh yes, happy birthday,
Jani.
to Jani.
Yes.
A lot of people are celebrating their birthday this June. So happy birthday to everyone. But I know yung masaya talaga over the weekend were the Knicks fans because after 53 years, they finally won the NBA title again. So,
Mamaya pag-usapan natin yung details na yan. Ano?
Okay.
Kung ano yung mga pinanalo na. But of course, first in the news, Ateneo Blue Eagles head coach Tab Baldwin has apologized to the families of student athletes Rene Baterbonia and Divine Adili. Baldwin expressed remorse over what he described as a failure in his responsibility as a coach. He admitted feeling that he had not done enough for the players as he addressed them in the aftermath of the tragedy. Meanwhile, long lines formed outside the Ateneo Davao Senior High School campus on Sunday as family, friends, and supporters paid their respects during the public viewing for Baterbonia. His remains will be brought to Talacogon, Agusan del Sur today ahead of his burial on June 24. Former teammates of Nigerian student athlete Divine Adili also gathered for a candlelight tribute on Saturday to honor his memory. Adili's remains are currently at the Ateneo College Chapel as his family awaits the completion of the necessary documents needed to repatriate his body to Nigeria.
As a coach, we are entrusted with the growth of our basketball players, the development of these young men into future professionals. But mostly, as a coach, I'm entrusted by you, the parents and the families, with first and foremost their well-being. And in this, I feel I failed. And I'm sorry.
His main purpose was to make his parents proud. That was it. He was there to make his parents proud. He was there to help his family advance in their way of living. And that was his hope of being here, that perhaps studying here and having a thriving basketball career here would help one way or another his family there in Nigeria.
Well, of course, seeing this video, a lot of people have said that this is not enough, especially this video appearance was released days after the tragedy happened. And they were saying, yes, of course, we know you're sorry, you're sad about this, of what happened, but we need explanation. We need the details of what happened there, what transpired in that training. So yun yung nakukulangan yung mga tao regarding that. And of course, since this tragedy happened, NBI, Commission on Higher Education, PNP, and even Ateneo Manila University have launched their own investigation. But I remember asking you, Cheska, before mga first few days of this happened, diba sabi ko, will UAAP, is there a possibility that UAAP would suspend, diba, Ateneo in this season? And true enough, sabi naman ng UAAP, they're looking all avenues, they're all following all the developments of this incident, and from then on, they can decide of what can they do, diba, if they're going to suspend or not.
Well, right now, Ateneo has begged off from the Phil Oil, Eco Oil preseason cup. They only got to play one game. This was on June 6. They beat Adamson. But sila na mismo yung nag-request to withdraw from the tournament. The question also remains, will Tab resign?
Yeah.
Will he? What's going to happen? Because Tab's contract was renewed September 2025
of last year.
So that was a 3-year contract extension. So technically he has about 30 months pa mag-resign. Yun na nga, will he resign? what's going to happen.
Will he resign or will he be suspended by Ateneo or the UAAP? Because a lot of fans, alumni, even the public have pointed out that the UAAP has actually imposed stiffer sanctions in previous incidents relating to member schools, coaches. Back in 2020, then UST head coach Alden Ayo was handed out an indefinite ban in the UAAP for holding a training bubble in Sorsogon at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, no one died from this training bubble. No one also got infected by COVID-19, but he was still indefinitely banned from the
until
league.
now, di ba, di pa siya nakapag-coach?
Yes, so hindi pa na-lift yun. So people are clamoring and wondering, bakit dito in this tragic incident where 2 lives were lost, parang medyo hindi pa firm yung stance ng league, ng UAAP. And their earlier statement was that they would leave it to Ateneo to decide. But now, yesterday, they said they will base it also on the findings of authorities.
And one of the notable sanctions na ginawa ng UAAP before, if you can remember, nung season 67 and 68, nagkaroon ng parang problema. So parang sinrip off nila yung championship ng LaSalle Green Archers. Kasi nga daw merong mga parang 2 players doon na ineligible pala, parang they use fake documents to enter college. So season 69, 2006 to 2007, hindi pinaglaro ang LaSalle Green Archer. So may mga notable sanctions. So kaya nga ngayon nag-aantay sila. Ano ba yung mangyayari dito afterwards?
But what we know is today, Coach Tab is expected to appear before the Department of Labor and Employment, right? That's at
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So let's see if he will show up and appear before Secretary Francis Tolentino. That is to present his alien employment permit. So that's required under our labor code. So let's see if he doesn't possess that, he might face a separate case as well. All right, now meanwhile, the International Criminal Court, or ICC, has ordered a new medical assessment on former President Rodrigo Duterte. ICC Trial Chamber 3 has reconstituted a 3-member panel of medical experts to determine whether Duterte is fit to stand trial. The experts will assess his mental, physical, and psychological capacity to understand the charges, follow the proceedings, and help in his defense. They are also tasked to determine whether any impairment is reversible or irreversible, and whether special measures are needed for a full-time trial. The panel must submit its findings by August 18, ahead of the expected start of Duterte's Crimes Against Humanity trial on November 30. Okay, so why is it very important to assess the fitness to stand trial of former President Duterte? It's because under the Rome Statute, the accused is generally expected to be present, right, during the trial proceedings. But his defense team has argued recently that Mr. Duterte continues to deteriorate and therefore needs another assessment. But if you remember yung earlier assessment ng medical panel, right, they already found that while President Duterte is frail and elderly, he still has a capacity to understand the proceedings. So that's what's important naman for the judges at the end of the day. As long as you can understand the charges and participate in the proceedings, then you will be determined fit to stand trial.
And this was December 2025. So it's now June 2026. May nagbago na ba? This medical expert panel, so they specialize in forensic psychiatry, geriatric and behavioral neurology, and neuropsychology. So 6 months is a long time, and then even from August to November, 3 months, a lot can happen, a lot can change.
Yeah, because this medical evaluation is also important as it could change the timeline of the case, diba? There are 3 possible scenarios that we can talk about. One could be if they find medically fit naman si President Rodrigo Duterte, then the case will just move forward, diba? It will start immediately, there will be no delays. But if they think na parang merong kailangan gawin, diba, kailangan i-reassess yung medical situation ni former President Rodrigo Duterte, there will be delays. There will be pause, baka kailangan i-reassess kung pwede pa siyang gawin to, etc. And if they find out na okay, hindi pa pala siya pwede, hindi na siya pwede because of his age, hindi na siya makakaintindi, then that will also affect the whole case, diba? Baka sabihin nila will stop indefinitely the case because the accused is unable to participate in the case. So there are a lot of things we should discuss before nga kailangan matapos itong medical evaluation na to. But of course, on the side of the victims, gusto nila na matapos na itong usapin na to and the trial should move forward para nga mapapakita na yung mga ebidensya. And there's another thing na nangyari din over the weekend, yung may pinayagan sila na new contact, no, na pumasok makipag-usap kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. And there are early reports kasi na sinasabi nila it was Hanilet Avincena, his significant other or common law wife, yung hindi daw pinapapasok at that time. So, pero sinabi naman of course ng ICC, the accused naman is also entitled with, you know, correspondence with family, etc. And this is also the right, his rights, pero hindi ito absolute, no. Pwede itong mabawi kung may mga violations under their guidance. But so far naman, wala namang violation si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Because in the past, puro yung mga anak lang, di ba?
Yeah,
yung
oo.
nakapasok sa
Tsaka
loob
yung,
ng
ano niya, yung legal counsel.
lawyers
oo.
niya. Okay.
Even yung mga political allies niya, hindi makapasok. Kaya that's when sila, Senator Robin Padilla was there in The Hague, nandun lang sila sa labas, nakikisali sa mga Filipino na nagrarally.
When you were there, strict talaga sila,
Very
no?
strict,
Oo.
very strict. Talagang in the International Criminal Court itself, every entrance doon, there's inspection.
Security.
And if you're going inside the court itself, sa gallery, para manood nung process, you're not allowed to bring anything except your pen and paper.
Even for journalists.
Yes, pen and paper lang.
For media?
Bawal.
Oh. All right, now on to sports. The New York Knicks are NBA champions once again, ending a 53-year wait for the title. The Knicks beat the San Antonio Spurs 94-90 in Game 5 of the NBA Finals to clinch the series 4-1. Jalen Brunson led New York's comeback with 45 points, including 15 in the fourth quarter, and was unanimously named Finals MVP. The win gives the Knicks their first championship since 1973 and their third overall. The title also marks a historic moment for Jordan Clarkson, who becomes the first Filipino-American player to win an NBA championship. Clarkson, who has represented the Philippines in international competition, was part of the Knicks title run after helping New York return to the top of the NBA.
Okay.
How is Diego?
Heartbroken.
How's
Ang
your
Spurs
husband
Nation.
doing?
Okay naman siya. Sabi naman niya mabata pa naman sila, so they can still, you know, bawi na lang sila next year. But of course, congratulations sa Knicks. They deserve it.
They deserve
diba?
it.
Especially itong sila Brunson, ang galing-galing niya.
There are many, obviously, like the main story would be the Knicks winning the championship again after how many years. But there are little stories all around. So Patrick Ewing was there. Patrick Ewing was part of the 1999 squad that lost to the Spurs. He wasn't able to play because he was injured. But on his end, the Spurs beat the Knicks 4-1 also
Oh, yeah.
in 1999.
Wow.
And of course, Jalen Brunson with his father, Rick Brunson.
That was so
That's, oh my gosh! Pero nakakatawa
Nagplay pala yung
because,
daddy niya dito sa atin.
yes, he played for, I think, Ginebra.
Ginebra.
But the funny thing is, Rick Brunson said, like, I love my son, but Patrick Ewing is still the greatest Knick to ever play. But also, can I just say, I am so happy for Spike Lee. Director Spike Lee,
Oo,
because
he's
the
there.
fans have been waiting for
Imagine,
decades. But Spike Lee has been a Knicks season ticket holder since 1985. He has been
Dedication yan.
courtside for 41 years, cheering for the
At
Knicks,
least, diba?
loyal to the Knicks. He deserves.
it.
Please, include him in the parade, include him in the celebrations. He deserves it.
I-include din daw si Joey Tribbiani ng Friends. Kasabi niya, Nick rules. Anyway, pero of course, happy tayo because Jordan Clarkson is
Yes.
there. He's also part Filipino. And also wanna comment, for me, when I was watching, di naman ako talaga yung katulad ninyo na magagaling sa basketball. I was just there, watching as a fan. Si Dylan Harper.
Yes.
He's also Filipino, pero apakagaling niya dun sa Spurs, no? Talagang binuhat niya yung Spurs. So, para sa akin, he also deserved this all the, yung mga praise natin bilang Pilipino. Ang galing niya dun, bata pa lang siya.
Lots of takeaways from this championship of the Knicks. It's a very inspiring story, a Cinderella story, right? They prove that any comeback is possible. They were actually the underdogs in this series. Remember, Tim Reynolds was saying that
Yes.
Spurs would take this one, but
In 7.
in 7, but
Knicks in 5.
what do They're now the champions. Lots of inspiring stories. Carl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson proving that he is indeed a 1A guy despite the criticisms before. So congratulations to the New York Knicks.
All right, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Over 120 individuals from civil society, youth, and church groups have joined a campaign calling for transparency and accountability in the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte amid Senate delays and political disputes. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza has this report.
More than 120 individuals from civil society organizations, youth formations, and church groups gather for the Bantay impeachment campaign spearheaded by the Makabayan Bloc representatives to further promote accountability, transparency, and public participation in the impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. The launch also comes amid growing public concern over uncertainties surrounding the vice's trial.
Nakakabahala na nagpapatuloy yung bangayan at intriga sa Senado na nalilihis yung atensyon mula doon sa mga halagang mausapin na kinaharap ng mamamayan. Marapod dyan yung mga usapin din ng accountability, diba? Yung pagpapatuloy nitong impeachment proceeding. Kaya nanawagan tayo, dapat manage yung serbisyong publiko sa yung mga personal na interes.
Despite tensions in the Senate, the House prosecution panel continues to prepare for the upcoming impeachment trial of VP Sara. This includes the mock trials and the marking of evidence and witnesses in line with the pre-trial conference set on Thursday, June 18. The first batch of House private prosecutors have also been named, and more are expected to come in the next few days. For ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, however, it is also clear that the factions in the Senate have delayed proceedings and all are for politics.
Sa dalawang paksyon ngayon sa Senado, malinaw na sila talagang tunay na interes na imbestigahan ng buo at comprehensively yung issue ng flood control. No, sa halip ay ginagamit ng magkabilang panig ang issue ng flood control para siraan ng isa't isa at isulong ang mga makariling interes ng bawat paksyon at protektahan ang kanilang mga kampi.
In the middle of continuous debates as to who shall be considered as the leader of the upper chamber, Makabayan calls for more than just the impeachment and better governance. That the 20th Congress focus on responsiveness, especially as there are still adverse effects brought by the oil crisis and the recently earthquake-struck southern Mindanao.
Alam natin na hindi sapat. Kailangan ng permanente, ligtas, at disaster resilient na evacuation centers. Hindi din dapat paulit-ulit na ginagamit yung mga paaralan, lalo-lalo na nag-school opening na.
Partikular ay nananawagan tayo as Department of Education na magbigay ang kanilang central office no, magbigay ng update sa Kongreso sa extent ng damage sa mga schools.
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
The death toll from the Mindanao earthquake has risen to 61, according to the NDRRMC. Of the total, 54 deaths were recorded in Region 12, while 7 were reported in Region 11. 40 people are still missing, while over 1,400 were injured. The agency says more than 173,000 families, or around 724,000 individuals, have been affected by the quake. 13 cities and municipalities are now under a state of calamity. So far, the government says 67.6 million pesos worth of assistance has been provided to affected families. Ateneo de Davao University opened its doors to the public for the wake of basketball player Rene Baterbonia. And for the latest, we have mobile journalist Evan Tarinque reporting to us. Evan, kamusta ang public viewing dyan?
Kulin kanina nga pasado alas 8 ng umaga lumabas na yung convoy nga nito ni Rene Baterbonia palabas ang Ateneo de Davao para nga papunta na doon sa kanyang hometown sa may Talakpogod, Agusan del Sur. Pero kagabi puli public viewing ng labi ni Rene at talagang gagsa pa rin yung mga tao nga gustong sumilip at magbigay pugay nga dito sa rising basketball star. Pero kasabay niyan, Pauline, doon sa misa nga na ikinagawa, huling misa kagabi, inanunsyo ni Father Karel San Juan na yung kanilang basketball court or mga covered court sa loob ng Ateneo de Davao Senior High School ay gagawin na ay papangalanan na kay Rene, no? Tatawagin itong Rene Bobet Baterbonia Covered Courts. No? Kasabay niyan, Pauline, inanunsyo rin yung pagretiro ng kanyang jersey number bilang ang pagkilala sa ambag niya sa kanilang basketball program. Pero Pauline, sa mga oras na ito, no, papunta tayo sa may Panabo City kung saan niya idadaan muna si Rene sa isang funeral parlor para sa isang retouch ng kanyang mga labi at maya-maya nga inaasahan at dediretso na siya papunta sa Talacogon kung saan magkakaroon naman ng public viewing bukas ng 1 p.m. hanggang 6 p.m. at magtatagal yan hanggang June 23 bago yung araw ng kanyang libing sa June 24, Pauline.
Evan, bukod sa pagretiro sa jersey number ni Bobet, ni Rene, pati na rin sa pagpangalan sa covered court nila dyan sa Ateneo de Davao University, may inanunsyo din si Father Karel San Juan at patungkol naman sa mga scholarship na ibibigay sa mga kapatid ni Rene. Tell us more about that.
tama ka dyan, Polino, over the weekend, isa nga doon sa inanunsyo ni Father Carel San Juan na bibigyan niya ng full scholarship yung mga kapatid neto ni Rene, no? Pito sila magkakapatid, so yung 6 dyan ay bibigyan nila ng full academic scholarship hanggang makapagtapos ng college. Ito kasi talaga yung pangarap ni Rene, no? Kaya nga siya napadpad sa Maynila para daw ma-fulfill yung pangarap niyang ito na matulungan yung kanyang pamilya at mapag-aral yung kanyang mga kapatid. Pauline.
Evan, so far, sino na ang mga bumisita dyan sa public viewing ng mga labi ni Rene?
Pauline, simula nung Friday, no, dumalaw na sila VP Sara Duterte, sila Gerard Anderson, no, pati na rin kahapon na sinubukan ni attorney ng legal counsel ng kanilang pamilya na si attorney Israelito Torion na makapasok dito nga sa public viewing. Pero unfortunately, hindi raw siya pinapasok doon sa loob. Kaya naman isang oras daw siya nagantay doon at hindi siya nakapasok. Pero so far, Pauline, no, kami talaga ng mga bumisita doon sa public viewing sa Ateneo de Davao, mga friends, mga players at talagang mga humahanga dito kaya Rene. No? Yung ilan mga nakalaban niya sa basketball at karamihan maganda mga naging teammates niya. No? Yung ilan naman, kahit naman daw hindi nila personally kilala itong si Rene, na-touch daw ito. Na-touch daw sila doon sa storya ni Rene na umabot niya sa ganitong kasabang palad.
And Evan, nakausap mo ba ang ilang miyembro ng pamilya ni Rene Baterbonia? Kamusta na sila?
Pauline, so far, no, wala pang official na tayo na ipag-usap doon sa pamilya Baterbonia. Pero dumadaan kasi kadalasan doon sa kanilang legal counsel na si Attorney Israelito Torion yung kanilang mga message. So hanggang ngayon, talagang umaasa pa rin sila doon sa full clarity na nangyari. No? Kasi nga, kung maalala mo, Pauline, no, over the weekend, naglabas ng video itong si Coach Tab Bagwin doon nga sa nangyaring insidente. Pero ayon dun sa isang Facebook post ng nanay ni Rene, hindi raw mababawi ng sorry yung pagkamatay nga ng kanyang anak. And so far, ngayon, kinaklarify pa rin ng kanyang legal counsel na si Atty. Torion yung verification ng babaeng nag-claim na asawa ni Coach Tab na inaakusahan siya ng hindi maganda.
All right, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Evan Terinque reporting from Davao. Now, the family of Ateneo student athlete Divine Adili has remembered him as a kind and responsible young man following his passing. In an interview with Storycon, his father, Elias Adili, recalled that before leaving Nigeria to study and play collegiate basketball in the Philippines, Divine promised he would help and support and take care of the family. He said the decision for Divine to move abroad was difficult for them, but was ultimately made in hopes of a better future. Elias shared that Divine was one of the family's breadwinners and regularly supported his 3 siblings while balancing his studies and athletic commitments. They are now awaiting the official autopsy results. No date has yet been set for the repatriation of Adili's remains.
Divine has been a good boy. He has a knack for basketball. After we visited the Nigerian Basketball League, and he picked interest, so I had to look for a coach for him. Then he told me that is what he wants to do. So how the link to how he got to Philippines was not communicated. I don't know about that. It's not communicated to me, the link, but he told me he was going to Philippines. So I only prayed for him that it will be well with him. Well, this is what we are getting now. It's very difficult for the family. It's very, very difficult for the family. The information really caused a very big devastation to the family. And well, there's nothing we can do. We cannot question God. We believe that the right thing will be done by the school authority and the relevant authorities concerned. So that's all I can tell you for now. So what we are demanding now is for the school to do the right thing. We cannot just take away our hope. Our hope was just taken away. And we don't, currently as I speak with you, we don't know where to start from. We don't know where to start.
Don't go anywhere because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
All right, so how exactly do the signed deals give teeth to the existing status of visiting forces agreement between the Philippines and Canada?
All right, but before I proceed on that score to describe the benefits of or what these two deals are, I must point out that these two agreements will only take effect together with the SOFA upon the concurrence by the Senate on the ratification by the President of the SOFA. So these are placed in a suspensive hold until the Senate ratifies the SOFA. So we urge the Senate to somehow ratify these as soon as possible. Now, going to the benefits, if you have a SOFA, you have to have logistic support and access. If not, then on both sides. If not, members of both armed forces will have to incur additional costs and time is lost because of the administrative requirements without access agreements. So these are complementary to the SOGFA. Now, there will be preferential, of course, treatment for items that can be provided by the receiving state. Secondly, the statement of intent on defense cooperation places into perspective what we intend to cooperate on. And these are, number one, interoperability in upholding UNCLOS. Canada unconditionally also supports the arbitral award. And secondly, it is interoperability, exchanging techniques and defense cooperation between the armed forces, also in education, also in capabilities. Canada has 600 defense companies which are also looking to partner or to base in the Philippines for co-production. Now, underlying this, President Marcos has always said that SOFAs are merely the cladding or the moorings of greater economic cooperation. And naturally, if you have economic cooperation, you need your supply chains. And together with the supply chains, you have your critical underwater infrastructure, critical infrastructure on the maritime domain and on the aerial domain, which you need to secure.
Indeed, they are
Lastly,
claddings and moorings that actually benefit the Philippines economically. But I just wanted to go back to what you said earlier, Sekibo, on the Senate ratification. Have you had a conversation with the Senate President on the immediate ratification of these deals, given its importance and given the kind of scenario we have at the Senate right now and the crisis it's undergoing?
not yet. I have not had the chance to do so, and I intend to do so as soon as I get back. But be that as it may, the morning of the that infamous event which happened in the afternoon, we defended before the committee the SOFA of Canada and New Zealand, and it was our impression that it would have been put to plenary the next week. But events overtook it, so we just urged the Senate to somehow find a way to get these and the confirmation of a lot of full colonels and general officers, which are pending.
Correct. Much ground has been lost in that event, Secretary Guibo. In concrete terms, though, what will Filipinos see on the ground? I mean, you've described the logistics agreement as putting teeth to the status of
Yes.
VFA, signed between Canada and Manila last year.
It will be more presence and more joint exercises between Canadian troops and the Philippines troops insofar as the SOGFA is concerned. But this is also, as I gathered, part of the foray of Canada into the Indo-Pacific. It has found the need to cooperate with other Indo-Pacific countries, and the Philippines is the first country that it signed the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement with, and where it wants to base its coordinating center for the Indo-Pacific. It could have chosen other countries, but it chose us. So it is a mark of confidence on the Philippines that in the whole gamut of defense cooperation from both the armed forces and militaries exercising together, there will be defense cooperation in secure communications, for example, is a big possibility. Other technologies, aerial capabilities and other capabilities, and defense co-production.
So how far do you intend to go in terms of interoperability? As you mentioned that word with the Canadian forces, are you looking at coordinated presence, for instance, in the West Philippine Sea?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Maritime cooperative activities, humanitarian assistance and disaster response. And one of the greatest mission areas is to secure supply chains. Canada has a surplus of energy sources, which the Philippines can tap. And we need those trade routes to secure those trade routes also on data sharing, underwater infrastructure, which are vulnerable. Critical underwater infrastructure is and securing those is a challenge in the Baltics, in the North Sea, and in the South China Sea, plus hopefully not, but honestly, in the Pacific, it is also open to challenge. So on the Pacific side, we need to hold hands with Canada and a host of other countries, the United States, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and on the South China Sea side, we need to do so because these trade routes need to be open. And I'm glad, as you reported earlier, that there was a sort of a provisional agreement between Iran and the United States. We hope to see the opening of the Straits of Hormuz soon and keep that open in the same vein that we need to make sure that the Straits of Hormuz are open for the Philippines. We need to make sure that the South China Sea and the Straits of Malacca are the same too.
From the perspective of Canada, the documents explicitly frame this partnership under their Indo-Pacific strategy and support
Yes.
for a rules-based maritime order and of course, the 2016 arbitral ruling. So what does Canada bring to the table? Is it military, diplomatic intelligence that you don't get from the existing partners you just mentioned, like the US, Japan, and Australia?
No, each country that comes into our universe of uh, collaboration and coordination brings its own bespoke capabilities and contribution. Canada will bring its expertise in secure communications and in cybersecurity, which it provides the rest of NATO, aside from its own federal system. So not only can the Philippines learn lessons and probably benefit from the cooperation in the defense sphere, but also in the national government because they have one of the most secure systems uh, in data and in communications in the whole world.
While you deepen the defense ties with Canada, Manila and Ottawa, as you know, are also accelerating negotiations for a Philippines-Canada free trade agreement. Some officials even eyeing substantial conclusion this year. From a defense perspective, why does an FTA matter to you?
Because that's our mission area, to make sure that the FTA is given sustainability and security, because any FTA, except in the digital sphere of the flow of goods and services, will need free trade routes and secure trade routes on the maritime domain and on the aerial domain, which is why Canada and the Philippines need to work with each other.
Well, you have now become one of the few Southeast Asian defense ministers personally sanctioned by China, citing your remarks that allegedly sabotage China-Philippines relations. Operationally, Sekibo, do these sanctions change anything in your risk calculus, rules of engagements
No.
at sea, the tempo of resupply missions, joint patrols with allies?
No, it's a personal sanction, and I believe that the remarks were merely their reason for the sanctions, but I think it goes deeper than that. As you know, we have been very busy in disrupting malign influence outlets and fake Filipino businesses and substandard producers of steel, which is also a suspected smuggling hub. And these are intertwined either officially or unofficially to our estimation, and whether or not they are sanctioned or unsanctioned by the People's Republic of China, they do weaken the economy. And it so happens that Chinese nationals are front and center in these activities, no? Together with complicit Filipinos.
Do you see any space at all for de-escalation with China in the West Philippine Sea? Or do you think the Philippines is now in a long-term managed confrontation?
Well, the de-escalation, there is a lot of space for it if China does behave in a manner which is consistent with being a citizen of the world and some country which does what it claims to uphold international law. What it is doing is contrary to all norms of international law. It is the assertion of brute size and power, and it doesn't only do it to us. It does it to Japan, and it does it to other countries. So it is up to China. They are they are the ones who are misbehaving. They are the ones who are claiming territory which they have no right whatsoever under international law, as stated by the arbitral award. And so it is up to them.
A final point, Sekibo, what is the latest on the coordination efforts for rapid response, operational plans, needs analysis for a quick hit southern Mindanao?
Yes, the rapid response is being undertaken at the present time, and the last barangays that were unserviced, I am informed, will be sitios rather, or puroks in, I believe it was in Jose Abad Santos in Davao Occidental, are going to be serviced today, together with the preemptive evacuation of the communities which may be in danger of flooding because of the landslide affected barangays which may be flooded by a river. So the coordination needs are coming very quickly. To this day, we have not yet requested for assistance from our humanitarian partners internationally. And as soon as we complete a thorough needs assessment, then a long-term rehabilitation plan can be done. I think this is a first time that we have seen an earthquake visibly of this magnitude because, for example, in the municipality of Glan, former submerged areas under the sea have risen above the sea level already. So it was really, really a massive earthquake, but it was also food for thought that we need to have structures more resilient, more access roads, and more mapping of communities.
Indeed, we'll keep tabs and monitor the situation there. Thank you so much, Secretary Gibo, and a very happy birthday, sir.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and to all our televiewers, thank you.
And safe travels back to Manila, Secretary Gibo Teodoro of the Defense Department. The United States and Iran confirm a peace deal has been reached 3.5 months since the Gulf War broke out. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, which is serving as a key mediator, first announced the deal this morning. The agreement will be signed in Switzerland on Friday. Sharif says both sides will end military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. U.S. President Donald Trump declares that the Strait of Hormuz will be opened upon signing, resuming traffic in the vital waterway where 1/5 of the world's energy supplies pass. He has also ordered an end to the U.S. blockade in Iranian ports. As for Iran's deputy foreign minister, he tells state media that all fighting will stop starting Sunday night. Negotiations for a final deal will be held during a 60-day period. Before the announcement, Trump told Israel not to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon anymore. All sides should, quote, stand down, adding that they should not blow up the chance for peace. Global oil prices tumbled by over 4% each following the announcement, with Brent sitting at about $84 per barrel and WTI at $80. With the Strait of Hormuz's closure, benchmarks like WTI have risen 41% year to date. Before the war broke out, WTI stood at $67 per barrel. It closed last Friday at $84 a barrel. Ron Acoba of Trading Edge says WTI may already be entering a new downward phase, nearing pre-war levels of between $67 and $71. Meantime, an industry source tells the Philippine Star diesel prices may fall tomorrow between 3.50 and 4 pesos, while gasoline may rise between 50 cents and 1 peso. You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, the Philippines' economic misery worsens as the oil shock deepens, job losses and inflation. Details and Security Bank's report from its chief economist, Angelo Taninco. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. The World Bank expects the Philippine economy to expand in 2028, though still below the government's target. In its latest report, the multilateral lender forecasts the Philippine economy to grow by 5.6% in 2028. If realized, this would fall short of the government's 6 to 7% target for the year. The World Bank said an expected recovery in public investment would help support growth. Meanwhile, it kept its growth forecast at 3.7% for 2026 and 5.6% for 2027. Both projections likewise remain below the government's target ranges for those years. Analysts expect the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to raise interest rates again at its policy meeting this week. A Business World poll showed 15 of 20 analysts expect a 25 basis point hike. 4 see a larger 50 basis point move. One analyst, meanwhile, expects the central bank to leave rates unchanged. Most analysts said the central bank is better positioned to deliver a measured 25 basis point hike after inflation eased last month and domestic growth remains sluggish. If realized, this would bring the key policy rate to 4.75% from 4.5%. Analysts also cited elevated inflation risks and the peso's continued weakness as reasons for further tightening. And a quick check on the Philippine peso on the first trading day of the week. Peso opens this Monday stronger, 60.60 to the dollar from the previous close of 61.35. Traders expect the peso to move sideways this week as they monitor the latest developments in the Middle East and the policy meetings of the Fed and the Bangko Sentral. Economic misery in the Philippines has spiked to its highest level in more than 3 years, reveals Security Bank's latest economic update, as job losses mount and inflation remains elevated. The report flags back-to-back net employment declines, high underemployment, and a misery index now near 12%, driven largely by an oil shock tied to the Middle East conflict. Well, with us now for more, the co-author of the report, Security Bank's chief economist, Angelo Jello Taninco. It's good to have you back, Jello. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me.
Yeah, you know, I would have wanted better news, but just looking at the misery index and the title, it just gave it away. Misery index at a 12-year high.
Well, actually, it's
a 37-month high, in fact.
37-month high at 11.9%. Now, this is for the month of April, the second month of the Iran war. And it's not just confined in the Philippines. Economic misery has heightened also around the world. This is showcased by elevated inflation because of the energy shock coming from the Iran war. And last week, we released the report because it's timely, given that the Philippine Statistics Authority also gave their April jobs report, showing that the unemployment rate stood at 4.7%. The misery index, which was crafted by an American economist, Arthur Okun, back in the 1970s, is a simple formula that combines unemployment and inflation. So when we look at both indicators, it showed a number that's close to 12% because recall, April inflation was at 7.2%, which topped everybody's expectations. And despite the unemployment rate decline from March, which was about more than 5%, still you have an elevated misery index.
Right. Let's work that out on the chart that we're seeing right now. There's 3 lines there, and the top line, the green line, is the misery index. And those 2 other metrics, you just mentioned it, unemployment as well as inflation. I'm wondering why you didn't maybe nuance it a bit and go for underemployment, because that was the headline, wasn't it, last week, when the underemployment rate reached a near 3-year high. It raised concerns that people were taking a lot more jobs that they were not so qualified for or underqualified to take on because they needed to pay rising household expenses.
Right. The underemployment rate, as you correctly pointed out, can be another metric of economic misery because this measures the number of workers who are willing to work more hours because they feel that their purchasing power is being eaten up by the rising inflation. But we've also found that there is a high degree of correlation between the misery index and underemployment, suggesting that both can basically capture the economic misery conditions.
So are we then more miserable then? I mean, a lot of overqualified Filipinos taking on a lot more jobs than they should just to make ends meet.
Well, that is correct as of April. But in May, we saw CPI inflation on a downside surprise at 6.8%, coming from 7.2% in April. So assuming the unemployment rate steadied, say at 4.7%, then you can see a month-on-month dip in the misery index.
So perhaps this might be the peak then. I mean, we're just taking a look at the peso. It's already risen to 60 to the dollar. That's a place we hadn't been in about a month. At least that's the best, the strongest in a month. And when you take a look at the WTI, it's also fallen by much, coming all the way from an increase of 40% since the Middle East conflict. Could these two metrics change the trajectory that you're seeing in the misery index?
Yes, we feel that the misery index has now greater room to go down for the remainder of the year because this tumble in global oil prices, thanks to the interim deal between US and Iran, will likely reduce inflation expectations. In fact, this is also good for the upcoming Monetary Board meeting as our house view is still intact at only 25 basis point hike. And this is because partly we have still a fragile labor market, as shown by the April data, the back-to-back employment loss, and is still high unemployment. But we need to curb the heightened inflation. So monetary tightening, but at a gradual pace.
But to your point, it's a fragile jobs market. You just said it right there. So why would they make the move? And why not just pause and have a look? I mean, a pivot's happening right now with oil prices, the peso, everything is going in the favor of possibly a pause.
Because the April misery index jump was largely driven by the elevated inflation, not much by the unemployment rate. And therefore, you have to now see price stability being restored more, but at the same time, recognizing that the labor market is still fragile. So our argument is do not heighten economic misery further by raising interest rates steeply. In fact, there is a newer formula of the misery index drafted by a Harvard economics professor, Robert Barro, who included the interest rate in the formula, suggesting if we raise the interest rates too aggressively, that will also elevate economic misery. So a moderate pace of rate hike, because you still have heightened inflation to restore price stability, while also recognizing a fragile labor market and subdued growth, as pointed out by your previous guest, will be more attuned to restoring a more balance between, one, having economic stability in terms of lower economic misery as we fight inflation, while also taking into account a jobs recovery.
All right. Well, knowing about 4 more trading days when
Yes.
that Bangko Sentral meeting happens. Thank you so much, Jello Taninco of Security Bank. Checking in on the markets overseas, U.S. stock futures rise after Washington and Tehran announced the peace deal. The Nasdaq climbs 1.6%, S&P 500 advances 1%, and the Dow gains 0.7%. Asian markets have kicked off the week in the green. South Korea's Kospi is up 5.6%. Japan's Nikkei 225 gains 4.5%, and Australia's ASX 200 climbs by nearly 1.5%. U.S. markets edged higher last Friday as Elon Musk's SpaceX made its debut on the Nasdaq. Financial stocks also boosted Wall Street. The Dow jumped 0.7%, S&P 500 climbed 0.5%, and the Nasdaq rose 0.33%. SpaceX on Friday pulled off the largest IPO in history and made Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. The company ended Friday's trading with a market value of $2.1 trillion, the sixth most valuable company in the U.S. Trading under the ticker SPCX, SpaceX closed Friday at $160.95 per share, up 19% from its IPO price of $135. This pushed Musk's net worth to $1.2 trillion. The SpaceX founder recalled how little optimism he had when he founded the company in 2002.
I give SpaceX less than a 10% chance of succeeding at all. I said, look, we're probably going to fail, but we should give it a try. SpaceX wants to be able to take you to the
Trading resumes this Monday following the Independence Day holiday, and analysts see the PSCI moving range-bound this week as investors await for the policy decisions of the Federal Reserve and the Bangko Sentral. The Fed will hold its meeting this Tuesday and Wednesday U.S. time, and the BSP holds theirs on Thursday, Philippine time. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great day ahead.
Good morning mga kapatid, I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. House prosecutors say they will present new evidence in the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. Bicol Sara Representative Terry Ridon says the evidence will allegedly show Duterte failed to declare millions of pesos worth of personal properties in her SAL-N. According to Ridon, these are personal properties listed in government records and allegedly not disclosed in her statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth. The evidence is linked to the article of impeachment on Duterte's alleged unexplained wealth. The new evidence will be included in the prosecution's pre-trial brief before the Senate impeachment court. The prosecution is also expected to present witnesses who will authenticate the documents.
Katulad po ng bank accounts, no, meron pong ilang mga pag-aari na hindi po na-disclose sa kanya pong statement of assets, liabilities, net worth over the course of all the years. The only additional witnesses would be the person who will authenticate and syempre give sense, no, on this new piece of evidence.
Joining us now is House Impeachment Prosecutor and Bicol Sara Party List Representative Terry Ridon. Congressman Ridon, welcome again to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Magandang umaga. Maraming salamat sa pag-imbita.
Well, Kong, I remember talking to you a week ago and asking you about this, if there will be additional evidence that will be, that the prosecution panel will be presenting. And here you are talking about this. Is this the one that you are saying na tinitignan pa ng prosecution panel? What exactly can you disclose at this stage?
What I can disclose at this stage is today will be the submission of the pre-trial brief, no? So hopefully, as soon as it gets submitted to the Senate impeachment court, we can already distribute copies to the public and to the media, and probably we would see the document and witness list there, kung saan po nakalagay yung pong ahensya ng pamahalaan, kung saan meron pong pag-aari yung ating pong pangalawang Pangulo na hindi niya po dineklara sa kanya pong SAL-N.
Pero itong properties na to, is this directly under VP Sara's name or linked through her corporation?
Sa ilalim po ng pangalan mismo ng pangalang Pangulo po ito at ng kanya pong asawa, si Ginoong Manasseh Carpio. So, isa po itong pag-aari na nandoon po sa mga regulated na mga tipo ho ng pag-aari. No? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan po talaga naka-register doon sa particular na opisina po ng pamahalaan po na ito.
And what is the estimated value of this supposed undeclared asset sa kanyang SAL-N?
Well, sa milyon-milyon po yung pinagsamang value. No? So, mahalaga po itong piece of evidence po na ito on 3 points. No? Una, syempre yung dami. No? Kasi hindi po ito handful lang, kundi I think more than 30 po yung pinag-usapan po nating pieces of property sa bagay po na ito. Pangalawa, syempre yung value itself. No? So, milyon-milyon po yung pinagsamang value po ng pong mga pag-aari po na ito. At ikatlo, syempre yung tipo ng pong pag-aari. No? So, katulad na binanggit ko, this is a regulated property. No? So, kagimbal-gimbal yung pong fact na ganito po karami yung pag-aari ng pangalawang Pangulo at ng kanya pong asawa.
I was wondering, Kong, how did you guys discover na meron palang undeclared asset itong si Vice President Sara Duterte? Can you walk us through the process? Who discovered it?
Siyempre, nung po nga nagpipinal, no? Nung po kabuuan po ng listahan, nung pong mga witnesses at ng pong mga documents, no? Particular dito po sa pag-aari ng pangalawang Pangulo, ang sabi ho ng isang House Prosecutor, maganda ho siguro magkaroon tayo ng clean sweep, no? Doon sa lahat po ng mga opisina ng pamahalaan na pwedeng magkaroon po ng pag-aari ang ating pong pangalawang Pangulo kung registered ba ang kanyang pangalan sa mga opisina po na ito. And ultimately, we had found out na on this particular class of property, tipo ng pag-aari, meron hong nakalakip po doon yung pong pangalan ng ating pong pangalang Pangulo at ng kanya pong asawa.
Was this discovered accidentally? Or, kasi if the evidence is as strong as you claim, people are also wondering why was it discovered only now? Why was it hindi po pinresent during the hearing sa Justice Committee?
Well, ang totoo naman ho, supplementary lang naman po itong ah, listahan at mga pag-aari po na ito. Dahil sa totoo lang, even without this particular class of evidence, okay naman ho kami doon sa opening of the bank accounts, of the MLC reports, no? At yung iba pa hong mga nailatag doon sa House Committee on Justice Proceedings. But again, wala naman din kung nagpipigil, nagbabawal doon po sa kahit kaninong panig, whether sa prosecution or sa defense, na maglatag po ng dagdag na ebidensya during the pre-trial stage, no, which will be undertaken this week. More importantly, wala din hong pumipigil sa kahit anumang partido na maglatag din po ng dagdag na ebidensya after the pre-trial stage and during trial proper, for as long as pumayag po ang Senate Impeachment Court and for as long as relevant in material doon po sa mga gusto ho naming patunayan sa articles of impeachment.
Yeah, because regularly or ordinarily, ang alam lang po namin na dapat mag-present ng evidence before the trial at walang surprise na evidence during the impeachment. Pero as you said, baka pwedeng i-allow nila yun kung sakasakali during the trial itself may lumabas na bagong evidence. Yun po ba yun?
Tama ho yan. So, dalawang bagay, no? Ito po nga linggo na ito, hindi naman ho kailangan halimbawa na hawak na po ng depensa o ng prosecution yung gusto po nilang ilatag na ebidensya. So, ibig sabihin, they will have to make a reservation. Ibig sabihin, they don't have to disclose the name, they don't have to disclose the particular document, but they have to, at the very least, state po ano ho yung purpose, no? Why we would want to present this particular evidence at a future time, no? So, ganun din po yung prinsipyo na susundin pagka trial proper na. So, halimbawa, pagka meron po mabagong discovery lang po mga ebidensya, we will have to seek the approval of the Senate Impeachment Court if it is something that we would want to present during the trial stage itself.
Well, ito po bang bagong evidence na to, Kong, will it be presented to public or sa trial na mismo?
Hopefully naman ho, as soon as we get copies of the actual, for example, report from the government agency, ilalabas po namin po ito sa publiko para makita na rin po natin. But hopefully, pagka naman ho, naisabit na ho namin yung pre-trial briefs, no? Ang expectation ko naman po, it is something that we can readily disclose as soon as it gets submitted to the Senate Impeachment Court today.
Okay. So, the pre-trial brief would be on, kailan po ba?
Today
Kailan
po, ang submission.
Today, di ba?
The 15th, no? Ang submission. Tapos yung pong pre-trial conference, the 18th po ang pagpupulong. So, pupunta po yung depensa, pupunta po yung prosecution, haharap po sa Senate Impeachment Court, Clerk of Court, na para pag-usapan po ito nga, yung listahan po ng mga ebidensya, listahan po ng witnesses, at yung pong sequence ng pong presentation of evidence.
And then how significant is this process in the impeachment trial? Why do we need to go through the pre-trial brief? Just for the information of our viewers.
Mahalaga po itong bahagi nung pong paglilitis ito pong pre-trial conference. Kasi may mga aspeto po dito halimbawa na pwede mong pag-agrihan nung pong dalawang partido. Na, halimbawa, hindi na kailangan hong magpresenta ng dagdag na ebidensya. So halimbawa, yung ebidensya ng pagiging pangalawang pangulo nung pong ating pong Vice President, baka hindi naman ho kailangang patunayan pa yon, di ba? Yun yung mga ganun pong mga pwede yung pag-agrihan nung pong prosecution at ang defense doon po sa bahagi po ng pre-trial conference.
Now, Kong, could this new evidence become the centerpiece of the impeachment trial?
I think the centerpiece would still be the threats against the president and yung pong mga massive total transactions, no? Nung pong mag-asawang Duterte Carpio. But to be clear, katulad ng binanggit ko, yung pong pagkaka-convict, no, kay Chief Justice Renato Corona, nakabatay din po ito doon sa non-disclosure po ng mga pag-aari sa kanya pong salin. No? So, in the similar vein, malamang ganito din po yung pong magiging effect nito pong bagong discovering ebidensya na ito, lalo tigit mapatunayan na meron nag-exist ng mga pag-aari sa mga government databases, pero it was never disclosed no, in any of the salins of the Vice President.
Of the Vice President. Now, Kong, do you need all four of the articles of impeachment to convict, or only one is enough?
Siyempre, we would want to be able to present all articles of impeachment and secure a conviction on it. No? Pero to be clear, the prosecution only needs a conviction on one article of impeachment. So halimbawa, kung mapatunayan ho namin yung threats and the Senate judges get convinced no, to convict the Vice President, she will be removed from office on the basis of one article of impeachment.
Well, right now also pinag-uusapan kung ilan no ang senator or mga senator judges that will be present during the trial. And there are also statements coming from Senator Ping Lacson saying that baka hindi matuloy because if you look at it, there are actually nine senators are going to face no different cases, personal cases of their own. Sinasabi niya baka sakali 15 na lang ang maka-attend ng impeachment trial. So, do you agree on his proposal na even if nakakulong o may kaso yung mga senator na ito, they will be allowed to vote as well?
Well, una, sila ho yung mapagpasya no, doon po sa how to conduct their affairs. No? So, ibig sabihin, if they would want to seek, for example, Sandigan Bayan approval, para halimbawa payagan po siya Senator Judge Jingo Estrada na mag-participate at makaboto, wala naman ho tayong debate po dito. Again, ang pinaghahandaan pa rin naman pong bilang at boto ng prosecution panel ay 16, no? 16 votes to convict. No? So, however it is that we will reach that number, syempre, nakabatay po ito sa ebidensya pa rin. No? So, kung paano man ho gustong gawin po ng Senado, Senate Impeachment Court yung pong pag-conduct ng kanila pong affairs, sila po yung mapagpasya dyan po sa bagay na yan.
And then, of course, there is debate dun sa number of quorum. Yung nangyari po nung mga nakaraang linggo, nung pagpapalit ng liderato, they, of course, mentioned yung Avellino versus, what's the other one? Cuenco, 'di ba? Pero sinasabi nila that is on the terms of quorum, pero hindi daw po yun po pwede i-apply pagdating sa impeachment. Your thoughts on that?
Wala naman ho tayong debate, no? Yung pong quorum, talagang pwede magbukas ito based on kung paano din ho nila binuksan at sinara yung pong quorum sa plenaryo, no? So, I think ganyan din naman po yung magiging itsura sa pag-convene ng Senate Impeachment Court. No? So, the rules relating to Avellino versus Cuenco will apply on the opening and convening of the Senate Impeachment Court, similar to what had happened in the Senate plenary. But, syempre, ibang bagay ho yung boto talaga. So, katulad naman ho binabanggit niya Senate President pro tempore Sherwin Gatchalian, ang kanila ho tinitingnan pa rin naman pong bilang ay 16 na senator judges to convict the Vice President. No? So, sila po yung bahala on these matters. No? Basta as far as we're concerned, 16 votes pa rin po yung pinaghahandaan po namin na makumbinsi to convict the Vice President.
And it wouldn't matter also on your side, on the prosecution side, whoever presides the impeachment trial, because as we all know, there are reports saying na baka mag-step aside si acting Senate President Win Gatchalian and will let senator lawyers to preside the impeachment trial.
Wala naman ho. So, handa naman po kami humarap whoever the presiding officer will be, whether it's Senate President pro tempore Sherwin Gatchalian or whether the Senate Impeachment Court will appoint an entirely different presiding officer na senator judge, okay lang din ho yun. Magpapresenta ho kami ng ebidensya ho namin, whoever it may be.
And right now, as you mentioned earlier, former Chief Justice Corona was impeached due to his salin. And right now, isa sa mga articles of impeachment kay Vice President Sara Duterte is about her salin. Do you think kailangan talaga ma-recommend na i-revisit no, yung guidelines ng pagpa-file ng salin ng mga public officials?
Well, mabigat ho talaga yung bagay po na yan. So, pwede yung pag-aralan talaga. Yung pong silent rules, no? Kasi halimbawa, may debate halimbawa ngayon, pwede bang ilump into others, yung po lahat ng ibang mga pag-aari and make an assumption, for example, na lahat ng mga hindi mo nabanggit ay nandoon na. No? So, halimbawa, may debate rin kung dapat ba talaga may cash in hand, cash on bank, no? Na separate line item dyan po sa mga bagay na yan. I think it's something that the House and the Senate should be able to revisit as well para maiwasan din po natin yung iba pang mga pagkalito no or pagkakamali or talagang outright na intentional pong hindi pagsasabi ng totoo sa atin pong mga statements, assets, liabilities, net worth statements.
Well, of course, a discrepancy in SALN is one thing. Proving intentional concealment is another thing. So, meron po ba tayong evidence to against VP Sara to make sure that meron pong deliberate na hindi po paglagay doon sa SALN? Because the defense would say na baka may clerical error, hindi nalagay.
Oh, pero it doesn't ask, the SALN law naman po doesn't ask whether it's intentional or not eh. Pagka ho wala doon, di wala ho yun doon. So, I don't think it was ever a debate on whether or not it was intentional. On the case of Chief Justice Corona, whether it's intentional or unintentional. No? So, the fact remains is, for as long as there are particular pieces of property that exist under a person's name, but it was never included in a SALN of a public official, para meron ng pananagutan doon. Irrespective of intention.
Right. Now, people are watching this case closely, and you said the evidence are very strong, but what exactly will convince the public that this is not about politics anymore, no? But the case is built on facts?
Alam po ninyo, mataas po yung support for the impeachment proceedings. I've seen several surveys already. And most importantly, irrespective of where they stand in political lines, no? I think they would want to be able to see the impeachment trial proceed, no? So that is what we want to do. And irrespective of whether the Vice President gets convicted or not, I think ang mahalaga po talaga dito, yung pagdaanan po natin, ito pong proseso ng pananagutan.
And of course, what other preparations is the prosecution panel is doing in light of this impeachment trial?
Tuloy-tuloy po yung mga mock trials po namin on each and every article of impeachment. No? So, up until the 6th of July, tuloy-tuloy po lang po ito kasi katulad na nabanggit na po ng mga ibang prosecutors po natin, may at least 25 witnesses. No? So, I think yung po mock trial of each and every witness, dapat magawa po namin yan so that we can actually anticipate yung pong lahat ng mga pwede maging tanong ng depensa at yung lahat po ng mga clarificatory questions na pwede po sabihin ng atin po mga senator judges.
And then, aside from documentations of this evidence that you're going to present in the pre-trial and trial itself, are there also several personalities should we expect na mag-testify against the Vice President?
Well, isa siyempre dun sa, I think, most certain na po na isasalang, siyempre si former Senator Sonny Trillanes, no? He will basically reiterate the testimony that he had stated in the House Justice Committee proceeding. So, he will restate it again. And kung meron pa mga dagdag po mga detalye at ebidensya, he will state it during the trial itself.
And overall, you guys are ready na rin come pre-trial and of course sa trial itself?
Tama ho.
Paano po ba yung yung hatian? Kasi kayo pong mga prosecution sa panel, may kanya-kanya po kayong assignment sa impeachment, articles of impeachment, di ba? So, paano po ba yung, ano yung unang ipe-present?
Siyempre sa pre-trial conference, no, si lead prosecutor uh, Congresswoman Jervil Luistro, yung po mainly magpe-present po doon po sa pre-trial conference. Pero handa naman po yung mga lead on the specific articles of impeachment, no? To make the presentation. So for example, handa rin po kami for unexplained wealth, no, to make the presentation during the pre-trial conference, and the other leads, no, on each and every article of impeachment.
Okay, on the issue of expenses, of course, alam po namin yung gagastusin sa Senate, milyon po ang nakalaan na pondo doon. Pero pagdating po ba dito sa prosecution panel, while you guys are preparing, meron din po bang budget na nakapaloob dito?
Nakalaka pa rin po yan doon sa House budget naman po, no? So, ibig sabihin, ang ginagamit po nga pondo, for example, para dun sa paghahanda, no? Kasi sa loob naman po ng House ginagawa yung mga paghahanda po namin, ano? So, yung pondo pa rin po, working budget, operating budget pa rin po ng House of Representatives, yung ginagamit po para dito.
All right, we will continue to get in touch with you regarding this issue. But for the meantime, thank you so much, Bicol Sara Party List Representative Terry Riton.
Maraming salamat. Good morning.
More matters to discuss after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
Defense Secretary Guibo Teodoro and his family have been banned from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Chinese Foreign Ministry announced the sanctions following statements made by the Defense Secretary amid ongoing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. Beijing said Teodoro's remarks were irresponsible and harmful to China's interests and to its relations with the Philippines. Teodoro, however, said he is not concerned over the sanctions imposed by China. He said it is China's right to take such action, adding that this is what they do to those who speak the truth against what he described as their deception. Teodoro added that the sanctions will not stop him from fulfilling his duties or from defending Philippine interests in the West Philippine Sea. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs has condemned what it called an unfriendly act by China, saying it further complicates relations between the two countries.
Senator Ping Lacson hopes the Senate leadership row will be resolved if President Marcos calls a special session. Lacson says the chamber must formally settle who the Senate president is amid the continuing impasse between the blocs of Senator Alan Peter Cayetano and Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. He also urged Cayetano to join Senate discussions and bring his concerns to the plenary instead of social media. Meanwhile, Gatchalian says the Senate will resume in-person work on today, June 15. But he says heightened security measures will remain in place, including a no-visitor policy. It is still unclear what specific proceeding will take place, as both Gatchalian and Cayetano have declared the Senate adjourned sine die.
TNT Tropang 5G kept their season alive with a 98-90 victory over Barangay Ginebra in Game 6 of the 2026 PBA Commissioner's Cup Finals on Sunday. Chris McCullough powered TNT with a dominant 53.22 rebound performance to level the series at 3-all and force a winner-take-all Game 7. On the other end, Justin Brownlee led Ginebra with 52 points. However, no other Ginebra player reached double figures, with Troy Rosario and Japeth Aguilar leading the locals with 9 and 8 points, respectively. Game 7 of the Commissioner's Cup Finals is set for Wednesday, June 17 at the Mall of Asia Arena.
CMAC got tired of Justin just eating his lunch. So another 50 piece by Justin today, but CMAC was able to stay in step with him. And I think that's basically the key. Our goal really is to keep them below 100.
And in other news, a 21-year-old woman has reportedly died after a bungee jumping incident in Brazil. Local reports say she fell from a bridge in Limeira, Sao Paulo, after event workers allegedly pushed her off without a safety cord attached. The fall was estimated at around 40 meters. Medics declared her dead at the scene, and 6 people connected to the event have been taken into custody, including 5 men and 1 woman. Authorities say some organizers allegedly fled after the incident, while police later located 2 of them.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters returns after a quick break.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa and you're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
The families of Ateneo student athletes Rene Baterbonia and Divine Adili continue to seek justice following their passing. Friends and supporters paid their respects during the public viewing for Baterbonia at the Ateneo de Davao Senior High School campus. His remains will be brought to Talacogon, Agusan del Sur today ahead of his burial on June 24. Meanwhile, Adili's father said the family has already coordinated with Ateneo de Manila University regarding the necessary documents, including those for the autopsy and embalming. They are currently awaiting the official autopsy results, while no date has yet been set for the repatriation of Adili's remains.
And we are now joined by attorney Joseph Noel Estrada, managing partner of Estrada Law, to help us break down the legal angles of this incident. Good morning, attorney, and thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sa inyo and to your viewers. Magandang umaga po.
All right, attorney, well, it's been exactly a week since the tragic deaths of Rene Baterbonia and Divine Adili, but this story continues to grip the entire country because of the gravity of the incident and because there are still many lingering questions that remain unanswered, right? So let's start with that. There are multiple investigations already being conducted by the NBI, CIDG, even CHED. But in your opinion, attorney, where should the investigation focus and what are the most important questions that need to be answered?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to clarify that I'm not representing the families or the Ateneo. So this is just an objective attempt to clarify legal issues, no? Beyond the outrage and our collective grief and speculations. Of course, at the end of the day, there's that difficult question, what does the law say about this? No? Because lahat po tayo nakaka-relate dito. No? It's really imbued with public interest. Lahat ay may magulang, may kapatid. No? Affected po tayong lahat. So, to your question, ang unang dapat tingnan, ano ang ginawa ng university? No? Because in matters like this, no, I'll try to simplify this. No? Because when something happens with a student in a college or university under the control of its officials, no? In this case, kahit nasa labas, may control ang university. There's that breach of contract. Ano yung breach of contract? That obligation to ensure their safety. And when there is that breach of contractual obligation to ensure their safety, there is always that presumption of negligence or liability. So the burden now shifts to the educational institution to show that it exercised due diligence to avoid, and then from there, syempre, whether it's criminal, whether it's administrative or civil liabilities, doon lahat magmumulay. But it has to come from them. Hindi burden ng ngayon ng mga agencies to show na merong pagkakamali kasi may namatay. No? May nangyari. The presumption is now on the university to show that this is like a fortuitous event, unforeseen, and that they have exercised due diligence.
Attorney, you brought it up, liability. This is the question that everyone is asking. Who is liable? And what are they liable for? So can we break this down for everyone? Let's start with the university. What could be the possible liability of the university in this case?
Okay, so the university itself, meaning not the individual employees, coaches, etc., their liability is always to comply with the administrative requirements of the Commission on Higher Education. That's number one. Number two, they have to comply with the standards and qualifications of engaging personnel, experts. No? So when you're talking about training, no? So dapat at the end of the day, pag nagkaroon ng investigation, yung mga tao doon in-engage nila, these are really professionals, they're really qualified. Because if for example, they're negligent in the hiring and engagement of people, and they have not complied with certain requirements of CHED, they are also opening the institution to certain administrative sanctions and even civil liabilities. No? For example, nag-hire ka ng unqualified personnel, tapos it resulted in injury or death. No? Yun po ang liability ng university as an institution in general.
So they're also accountable in this type of situation. Can they say, attorney, that we weren't aware, we were just told that they will be conducting a team building activity, sanctioned naman siya ng school, but they weren't told that it, syempre kasi because this involves water conditions that are,
correct.
You have no control of. So can it be reduced to a simple tragic accident?
At the end of the day, syempre, it's a matter of evidence. No? But like I said, the burden is really on the education institution, not just on Ateneo. In general, when something happens like this, the burden is really on the education institution to show that it has exercised due diligence. So yung mga binanggit mo, like, very specific, ano yung requirement ng Commission on Higher Education? Dapat may consent ng parents. Kahit po college ito, dapat may coordination with LGUs. At dapat merong enough personnel to handle the students. No? But again, syempre, may mas malalim pa because these are just CHED requirements. Kasi kung babalik na rin mo yung sitwasyon, na-comply ito lahat, iyan ba could it have prevented the incident from happening? Kasi that's always, kasi ang bottom line is, yan ba ay unforeseeable yung nangyari? Because if it is unforeseeable, unforeseen, fortuitous event, that's ground to avoid liability.
Okay.
But
Can
of course, kailangan walang
attorney, para lang mas malinaw. What
Halimbawa,
would be...
ang fortuitous event kasi, force majeure no, in general, but pag sabi mo fortuitous event, act of God, no, earthquake, typhoons, calamities. No? Yung force majeure, act of man, halimbawa war, riots, may shooting incident. No? May sabihin talagang hindi natin ma-expect. No? But the requirement of the law is, kailangan wala pa rin negligence. Kasi kahit may act of God, kung may negligence, liable pa rin.
Attorney, in terms of, like, for example, I mean, schools have field trips.
Yes, yes.
Diba? And the students are given permission slips for the parents or waivers or anything. In terms of incidents like this, will a waiver, affect the outcome, the decisions or anything?
Yeah, yung waiver kasi very limited ang application yan. Again, like I said, yung waiver, it only applies to extraordinary risks. Yung hindi natin inaasahan, yun lang ang pwede niya i-cover. Kasi yung ordinary diligence, yung obligation on the safety, hindi mo pwedeng i-waive yun kasi tinakda ng batas yan sa lahat ng eskwelahan. Kaya usually, di ba, when there are activities that increase the risk of harm, doon usually nagpapa-waiver. Diba? Pero yung mga ordinary activities, hindi ka na nagpapa-waiver kasi alam mo nang gagawin. It's, you have, more or less, you are aware of the attendant risks. Pero yung mga lalayo, lalabas, activities that are usually prone to accidents, doon nagpapa-waiver.
Okay, Attorney, now let's talk about the liability here of Coach Tab Baldwin. As the head coach of the team, of the Ateneo Blue Eagles, right? Even the team manager, Epo Kimpo, they have already gone on leave to preserve the integrity of this investigation. But let's talk about their liability first, Is there an expectation that they should have conducted a risk assessment first before subjecting their student athletes to this type of activity? Because even Coach Yeng Giao, a respected coach in the basketball community, has said, normal lang naman yung water training activities, right? But they usually do it in swimming pools.
Controlled environment.
In a controlled environment.
Correct. Yeah. So they will all fall under that bucket of responsibility na due diligence. Due diligence meaning the exercise of due care under the circumstances. This is a common knowledge from a prudent man's perspective. Ano ang dapat ginawa? No? So more or less may idea na tayo. So lahat ng binanggit mo, and this shared by many, by the public. Pero I think, ako may personal opinion, legal opinion, since this is in a professional training environment, basketball team, I think it requires more than that. Kasi otherwise, magkakaiba tayo ng standard of care.
Yes.
Sabihin ng iba, dapat chinek muna, etc. But I think we need experts here. Yun ang we need, what is really the standard? May narinig na tayo, like you mentioned, Coach Yeng. Maybe we should also look at what is really the standard of care when it comes to professional trainings like this. Because this is not just a team na isang section or intrams. It's athletic, part of a competitive. So, para malaman natin kung meron bang hindi sinunod. Kasi pag hindi mo sinunod yung standard of care, then there's negligence.
I'll follow up on that quickly lang, Attorney. Do you think Coach Tab was given too much freedom in the way he handled the team?
I'm really not aware, but I think that's also an impression that is created because of because of the time that is already spent with the team, parang more or less meron na siyang siyang nasusunod, no? So But again, we do not know. Probably yan ang babantayan natin pagka nagkaroon ng mga investigation.
In terms of the investigation, there are videos and social media posts circulating from the estranged wife, from the daughter. Is this going to affect the investigation in any way?
Yeah, anything that would be helpful kasi lalo na dun sa kasi may different levels of investigation. Lalo na for purposes of administrative investigations, CHED, yung mga in aid of legislation, lahat po yan ay magagamit po natin. No? But of course, pagdating sa korte, kung in case criminal liabilities, iba rin. No? But of course, this will all be helpful to us. Circumstantial evidence statements, previous statements. Actually, doon po sa mga ganyan, pag may nangyari, lahat ay relevant before, during, and even after. How the community reacted, how they helped. Kasi hindi mo mape-prevent yung pangyari, pero anong ginawa mo before? At ano yung preparations before, no? And during and also after. Lahat yan will be relevant when determining whether there is due diligence or negligence.
Siguro let's dig deeper into that, attorney. From that statement of the wife of Coach Tab Baldwin over the weekend, she said that they warned Ateneo that kids are not safe around Coach Tab Baldwin. Now, we're not exactly sure ano yung context no. We weren't provided.
It's a very brief video.
Yes. All she said was that kids are not safe around him. So, how will that affect this investigation? Is that will that reflect more on the character of an individual? Explain that to us, attorney.
Sige, in general, not only coming from a wife, kasi marami nagsasabi, syempre, ex-wife, walang masasabing hindi maganda. But you raised a good point. Ignoring signs is a sign of negligence. In general, hindi lang statements of people, but for example, sinabi, may warning, kakalindol lang, warning, tsunami warning, or government warning. Tapos, in-ignore mo. That may be considered as negligence in jurisprudence. So, I just don't know the weight, yung probative value of the statement of the wife. Kasi, syempre, people will start attacking credibility, reliability. I mean, if you relied on it, would it have prevented by the matter or the incident from happening? Again, dun babalik. But in general, ignoring signs, you raised a good point. That's an indication of negligence.
Okay. Well, another possible, group that's liable. What about the venue in which it happened? Because again, we see this everywhere, like parking lots. We are not responsible. Don't leave any valuables in your car. We're not responsible for any losses. Or, were there warning signs at the resort saying do not enter the waters at this point?
No lifeguards. There are no lifeguards.
Yeah. So iba rin ng liability and responsibility ng like a resort owner. Kasi unlike a school, merong kontrata and there's a built-in obligation on the part of the school to ensure safety of students. Sa resorts kasi hindi. Lahat ng gumagamit doon, hindi naman sila nagkakaroon automatically ng contract. Their relationship is governed by agreements. No? Hindi built-in yung safety. But of course, they have to ensure, again, due diligence in ensuring the safety of everyone. No? So may mga requirements yan from the LGU, syempre yung mga first aid, lifeguards, yung mga ganun. So lahat yung titingnan. No? But again, let's say, assuming in a theoretical case, may liability yung resort owner, it doesn't erase the liability of a school. Hindi ibig sabihin, sila na, hindi kami. Sabi ng Supreme Court in one case, the school cannot contract away its responsibility on the safety of students. You cannot pass it on to third parties. So, may responsibility ka pa rin na ingatan yung estudyante. So, assuming may nagkamali na third party, not representative of the school, it doesn't exculpate you from any responsibility.
Because I believe the resort owner has gone on record saying that they warned the team, they warned Coach Tab, the trainers, the players, that they should just stay within the perimeter of the resort in front, the beach in front. Although in the investigation of authorities, nakita po na 300 meters away from the resort nangyari yung insidente. So by warning the team, does that remove liability already from the resort and prove further na negligent yung Ateneo team?
But you have to look at the totality of circumstances. Ingat ako, mahirap because, these Siyempre, ang daming opinions going around. But kaya talagang importante, magkaroon na ng formal investigation. You look at totality of circumstances. Because like, while I said those things kanina, no, of course, the Supreme Court also said, no, in a long line of cases, that the school is not an insurer of all risks. No? Omniscience is not required. Hindi mo mababantayan lahat, hindi mo makikita lahat. But when something is foreseeable and you ignored, no, the risks involved, then there is negligence. Hindi rin pwedeng walang liability. But to balance it, no, again, hindi naman porke may nangyari, a tragedy alone does not create liability. That's what the Supreme Court said. Kaya kailangan talagang tingnan natin ng mabuti yung mga facts, what really happened. Pero importante yung sinabi ko nung simula, there's always that presumption of negligence and liability when something happens. Now the ball is really on the court of the education institution to show that it's the reverse. We exercise due diligence, and this is something that is not foreseeable and it's unavoidable.
And of course, there are obviously many discussions now on how to address this tragedy moving forward. We've seen the stakeholders come together, impose more measures for safety. But ano pa? What should schools and parents? Let's talk about parents first. What should parents look out for, especially for their children going to school, to out of school activities?
Yeah, that's a good point, no? Because their safety is not the sole responsibility of the school. No? So you raised a good point. Parents must be involved. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be sure. Yung iba nga, nagre-require pa ng ocular inspection before they send their children, before they allow them. Or kung hindi kang komportable, then demand from the school anong alternative activity na same ang compliance. No? So you have an option. And then again, of course, involve government. Din sa CMO 63 of CHED, series of 2017, may mga responsibilities ng government agencies doon. Local government, the League of Cities and Municipalities, lahat yan, Department of Tourism. So, meron silang mga responsibilities. So again, let's involve everyone para hindi na mangyari ito Kasi talagang napakasakit pag nangyari at lahat relate, di ba? Oo.
And siguro, attorney, bawalan na yung mga activities na ganyan na in waters that are known to be dangerous, diba? Unless, of course, they are trained swimmers and they really know how to deal with these water conditions. But speaking of due diligence, siguro walk us through the steps na kailangan gawin ng schools, ng teams in order to prevent tragedies like this from happening again.
Okay. So, una, it goes beyond just waivers kasi usually preparation lang para bang it's avoiding liability right away, but it's really beyond that, more than that. Dapat meron talagang preparation, as simple as, like I said, ocular inspection. Make sure that the venues are compliant with government regulations. Like alam nyo, may maraming incidents yung fire, yung venues, at doon din nagiging tragic din yan. Tapos malalaman yung venue is not compliant with the fire and building code. So whose responsibility is that? Aside from the building owner, yung school na nagpadala doon. So all of these things, sometimes we think that it requires expertise, pero hindi. Minsan, ocular inspection. Just asking questions. As basic as that. Making sure that, and then looking at, trying to imagine scenarios at anong gagawin. Like for example, paano pag nagkalindol, saan sila punta? Paano pag nagka-medical emergency, saan ang pinakamalapit na hospital? How long will it take for emergency response to come in? Mga ganyan, these are all part of due diligence. Because if you miss one, then that's an indication of negligence, due diligence. Diba?
Okay.
Indication of negligence, sorry.
Attorney, can we just picture the scenarios for people to understand what happens if, let's say, the school is found liable, and what happens if it's found to be an accident?
Okay. So, una, in general, so the education institution operates from a government authority, a recognition from the Commission on Higher Education. So basically, if there's a serious violation of conditions of that recognition, it may be revoked. But of course, we're talking about Ateneo, it's the #1 university. So it may be, so syempre, ang argument doon, isolated ba yan? Does it affect all of the programs? Kasi ang most severe penalty is closure. The second is possibilities. suspending all off-campus activities. Nakalagay yan sa CHED. No? So, ipagbabawal na muna yan. And then yung civil liabilities, no, outside of the administrative from CHED, sa courts naman na yun, no, damages, no, payment of actual damages, moral, exemplary damages, again, based on, after due process and hearing, of course, with the courts. That's a possibility also. Like I said, yung vicarious liability ng university in the selection and hiring of its personnel, of its professionals, yun ang kanilang responsibility. Pero yung mga individual liabilities, iba naman yon. Like you said, sino yung present nung nangyari yon? Because their responsibility will depend on how they acted, no, in that actual situation. And also, before and after.
So pag ganun, attorney, meron bang criminal liability na posibleng magkaroon just basing on this incident, particularly on the part of Coach Tab Baldwin, who is the head coach of this team, right? He conducted this team building activity apparently for 3-4 years already. Will he have individual liability here to the extent of a criminal liability?
I will not speculate as to Coach Tab's liability or criminal liability. In general na lang. No? So, of course, it's always a possibility. When the negligence is so gross, no? Talagang reckless. No? Kasi the criminal liability is reckless imprudence resulting in homicide. Pero sa atin, sa batas natin, medyo mataas yung requirement for criminal liability. It's not just negligence. No? Talagang reckless imprudence. Alam mo, yung batas natin kasi sa negligence, criminal liability, pare-pareho, like yung, yung nakabangga, nakasagasa. Pare-pareho, no? Negligence professionally or anyone, it's the same. The standard is the same. Kaya while that's a possibility, medyo mataas lang ang requirement talaga. But if you're asking, possibility, yes, these are all possible. Administrative, civil, and criminal liabilities under the law.
From a lawyer's standpoint, because we've seen statements from Ateneo saying that they were the ones who requested Coach Tab to refrain from commenting or saying anything publicly. He did release a video though, and I think that was the one and only time that we've heard anything from Coach Tab. As a lawyer, how do you handle all of this when obviously the scrutiny is on one person?
Yeah, from a purely legal standpoint, no, syempre may PR experts and all. I'm sure meron silang way better handling this. But from a purely legal standpoint, kasi yung silence does not equate to guilt. Yun ang sinasabi ng courts. Pero, as in this case, kasi the burden is really on the school to show. So they need to be proactive. Silence will not do anything. No? I don't know, they're saying they're doing an internal investigation. That's okay. Pero yung silence, whether it affects their liability or non-liability, it's more detrimental sa kanila. Because like I said, the burden shifts to the school to proactively show that it has exercised due diligence. Baka naman they're waiting for the proper forum and not just making this a public debate, no? And opening it up to speculations. Pero ako personally, at the very least, dapat meron tayong narinig. Because we cannot say that this is a purely private incident. Education is imbued with public interest. Everyone is interested here. Everyone's affected. Whether it involves a private university or not. Because this is true. This happens also in other situations. Di ba?
Okay, and finally, siguro, attorney, what are our takeaways from this incident? What are some of the reforms that you're seeing, policies that could be crafted, implemented to avoid this from happening again?
I think we should have more involvement of the government. And in partnership with the higher education institutions, look at actual situations, look at actual requirements for certain activities. Kasi like yung existing policy, CMO 63, parang very general siya. I mean, it's easy to comply with that. But does it, but regardless, kahit merong ganyang policy, nangyayari pa rin ito. So I think, wala naman talagang makakapagsabi ng, di ba, there's a hard and fast rule, specific formula to solve all of this. But I think what we can learn from this is that safety is the responsibility of everyone. No? Let us all be involved, parents, students, and of course, schools. They have responsibilities to fulfill.
It's a wake-up call for everybody.
Wake-up call to everyone, definitely.
We never want to see this happen ever again. Thank you for your time and insights. Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada, Managing Partner of Estrada Law.
Maraming salamat po.
All All right, now don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters.
All right, now that's it for today's news. But before we go, we have lots to unpack from today's episode and stories. Angela, with Kong Terry,
Contestant
ano bang
number
sabi
1.
niya?
Well, for me, nakikita ko dito overall, yung today's dominant theme is all about accountability.
Yeah.
Whether we talk about the impeachment against the Vice President or the tragic incident involving 2 athletes, si Rene and Divine, and or the ICC proceeding against the former President. So this is all accountability that the people are not just asking for statements or mere explanation. People want accountability, transparency, and consequence where warranted.
And these are all developing stories where more information is going to come out in the coming days, weeks, and months. And with regard to Rene and Divine's families, explanations.
Yes.
They just want answers pa rin.
And as Attorney Estrada mentioned, there are possible criminal charges here, criminal, administrative, civil liability, not just on Ateneo, but also on the team, on head coach Tab Baldwin. So we're going to see where the investigation goes, but it's important that we keep this conversation in the national perspective, right? Because they're very, very important.
Yep, and we will not forget. That wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunsad-Cas.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cheska Liton-Calo.
Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Kapatid, we are one news.
All sides,
all the time.